in Washington. And joining me now is Congressman Brad Schneider, a Democrat from Illinois. Congressman, appreciate your taking time to chat with me. Let me just start by getting your reaction. The impeachment proceedings will be in your hands next week for a vote. Republicans, of course, say this whole thing is a sham, it's a circus. Democrats have nothing on the president. Where do you stand?
Paul, well, thanks. It's good to be with you. You're right. The Judiciary Committee today is voting on impeachment within the committee. It's supposed to come to the floor next week. I will look at the final articles once they're out of the Judiciary Committee. What we all know, and there are facts that are not in dispute, is that the president asked the president of Ukraine, President of the United States asked the president of Ukraine to intervene within a U.S. election. He used congressionally authorized, taxpayer-funded military aid for Ukraine as a vehicle to apply pressure, as well as a White House visit. The questions that are in front of us and will be in front of us next week is to the extent that he is threatening our elections, the integrity of our elections, putting his own personal interests ahead of our national security, foreign policy interests, and his refusal to cooperate with the U.S. Congress. Will he be held in contempt of Congress? Those are articles that should come next week. I expect it will pass through the House. And then the president will have his day in court. He will have a defense team. There will be prosecutors from the House, and the senators will serve as jurors. But that's how I see this process about to proceed.
Now, of course, Republicans say Congress can't walk and chew gum at the same time. You can't do anything except this impeachment. That's not true, because just today, you all passed the Elijah E. Cummings Lower Drug Cost Now Act. You were a sponsor of several parts of that. So first of all, congratulations on getting it through. And let me ask you about some of those provisions, such as the one involving pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, this is a big deal. So people who have the Medigap coverage, if they are under the age of 65 or have Medicare Advantage, they could be underwritten for pre-existing conditions. They didn't have the same access that folks, for example, under the Affordable Care Act in the private market have. What we passed today with my legislation as a part of it would ensure that these people can get that coverage even if they have a pre-existing condition, so they can get the insurance coverage they need, access to the medicines they deserve. But more broadly, what the bill we passed today, the Elijah Cummings Lower Drug Costs Now Act, does is it would allow the Secretary of HHS to negotiate drug prices with the pharmaceutical manufacturers, not just within Medicare, but those would then be applied. Those prices would be applied to the private market. And it caps the out-of-pocket for seniors at $2,000. These are examples of big steps forward to try to bring down the cost of health care for Americans.
You also sponsor a provision regarding getting lower-income people more help, and also capping the amount of out-of-pocket to $2,000. So let me have you address that as well. But I also want you to address one other thing. Because the Trump administration now is fighting in court to have pre-existing conditions as a protected coverage be found to be unconstitutional, would that impact you at all?
Well, we have to follow what's happening in the court. That is a separate path. But within the legislation, first, the Affordable Care Act in the private market said that you cannot be not precluded from getting insurance because of pre-existing conditions. That was a big step forward, and I think all Americans appreciate that provision. We've extended that now to seniors with Medicare Advantage coverage. That's part of the progress we've made. But also, as I mentioned, there's the cap of $2,000. The other piece is providing assistance to seniors, low-income seniors, to buy into insurance plans that they can afford, and making sure, again, our goal is that every American, regardless of age, regardless of income, regardless if they live in a city or out in the country, everyone in this country should have quality, affordable care from doctors they trust when they need it, where they are.
Did this get through on a bipartisan basis, meaning the Senate might give it some consideration, or was it primarily Democrats, meaning Mitch McConnell will let it sit?
Well, we had two Republicans join us, so it is a bipartisan bill. We have seen Mitch McConnell let a lot of stuff sit. So far this year, in 2019, this Congress has passed more than 400 bills. Two-thirds of those bills are bipartisan. They have Republican and Democratic support, and Mitch McConnell refuses to allow them to go forward. The example I was talking about it this afternoon with a group of people that I like to focus on, Secure Act, which would help small businesses provide their employees retirement plans. It passed the House 417-3. That's bipartisan by any measure. The Senate should be passing, at least considering these bills. As I said, 400 bills, 275 bipartisan. They may pass or fail in the Senate, but let the Senate have the debate, vote on them, and what we agree on, let's send that to the president to become law.
So it looks like the USMCA, or NAFTA 2 as some call it, will make its way out of the House. A couple of questions about that. Number one, the president, of course, he will take an incredible victory march when that thing gets through and when that thing passes. But at the same time, Nancy Pelosi made it clear that the Democrats cleaned the White House's clock, and I think that's a quote from her, on provisions involving the environment and labor and such. So who is the real winner when that thing goes through?
I think the answer to the question of who is the real winner is easy. The American people are the winner here. And it's not a matter of NAFTA 1 or NAFTA 2. The original NAFTA agreement is 25 years old, was out of date, needed fixes. What the president presented to us did not have enough provisions for labor protections, for environmental protections, and in particular for enforcement. I think what we got over the past number of months, working with the president's trade ambassador, Ambassador Lighthizer, who's been wonderful to work with our folks in the House, is a much better deal for the American people. This is a win for U.S. companies, it's a win for U.S. workers, it's a win for the American economy, and it's a win for the North American continent. And so it shouldn't be keeping score this side or that side, Republican, Democrat, House, or President. What are we doing to make sure we're moving things forward for the American people? And that's what we're focused on.
It's being suggested that the impeachment vote in the House might be like Tuesday of next week, maybe Wednesday, and that Speaker Pelosi does not want that to be the last thing you guys do before you leave, so you can come home and talk about other things you accomplish. Is that the timing that you're hearing? Because others have said, oh, no, the impeachment vote's the last thing they'll do at the end of the week. What are you hearing?
I've heard a number of things. Look, none of us ran for office to vote on impeachment. This is something that I take very seriously. What I want to go home and talk about after this week is over next week and all throughout next year is the things we're doing to help the American people. Things to grow our economy, to create more jobs, to make it easier for people to get the education they need to succeed, to make it better possibilities for seniors to retire with dignity and security. Those are the things that we are working on in this Congress. That's what I want to be talking about. So I don't know what the timing is. It could be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. We have a lot of other bills that we have to focus on. In particular, I'm hoping that we'll have a vote on the SALT bill that passed the Ways and Means Committee this week with my help. We've been working all year to try to give relief on the cap on the SALT deduction. It passed the Ways and Means Committee yesterday, and we should be voting on that next week as well.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. That repeals that the state and local tax provisions for 2021 and 2020, right? It's a temporary Band-Aid.
Right.
Okay.
So the first thing it does in 2019, so for the current tax year, is it eliminates the marriage penalty. Right now, with the cap, it's $10,000 for a single filer or a married couple. This would, for 2019, raise that to $20,000 for a couple. And then in 2021, it would eliminate the cap. And the hope is that by the time we get to 2021 and into the following years, we can get to the real tax reform that we need, not what passed in 2017, which was a tax cut that is leaving us with a $2 trillion deficit.
All right, well, good luck on that. You'd have a lot of blue state people to be happy about that. Finally, I have to ask you about... Yeah, I've got to ask you. The president, of course, now seems to be declaring Judaism as a nationality and not as a religion. His point is to allow more free speech on campuses. And I'm telling you, as I search the social world, social internet, man, everything's all over. There are Jewish people who just say he's the biggest supporter of Israel ever, and there's those who say this is a step away from Nazi Germany. I mean, literally those two perspectives. Your Judaism is important to you. Where do you stand on this?
Well, and I speak to this as a Jew, but also as a representative of the 10th District and a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Anti-Semitism is a growing problem. We see it just this week with the shooting in New Jersey. We've had the shooting in Pittsburgh, the shooting in California. Anti-Semitism is rising in our country. It's rising throughout the world. We need to address it. I think previous presidents have used the legislation and said that we're going to treat religious groups, ethnic groups, under this Title VI categorization as groups of national origin. We need to fight prejudice and anti-Semitism everywhere where we can. At the same time, we need to do it in a way that brings people together. The president has a pattern or a strategy of dividing people. We need to unite people. The president has a record of using anti-Semitic tropes. He did just the weekend before last at a speech in Florida. It may have been last weekend. I don't care if it's from the left or from the right. Anti-Semitism is evil. We need to fight against it. Hate is hate, whether it's directed towards Jews, Latinos, African Americans, people of different sexual orientation. We are a country that has always said that we are going to lift people up, that all people are created equal. I believe that to my core.